business finances and keep things in order. So pop on our YouTube. It says that we're live now. Let us know in the chat on YouTube if you pop over there to our YouTube channel, I Will a Remedy. Let us know if you can hear us. Let us know if you're able to see our screen when we share it out. And we're going to be sharing. We want you all to see the tools that we use because they're totally free and they're really helpful. And Tammy was giving a little bit of the backstory. And it took us a while to figure out just our own money language, how we were compatible, how we could both be in the finances, be present in the finances without the overwhelm and like do it together. And I will say, like, you don't have to, obviously, you know, like we are, you know, we're married, we do everything together, but being able to keep track of this on your own, having simple tools and simple systems that can help you not feel overwhelmed about the money, and also really tracking the ins and outs, because these systems that are completely free have really helped us not overspend, help us save money, help us know and just like point where's the money going, what tools are we using, are we not using. So pop on over to our YouTube. Yay, it's working now. Sorry for the tech issues. You know, Pluto's in Aquarius, so we're probably going to have tech issues for the next 20 years.
We're not going to claim that.
Just in and out, you know, just in and out. It's all good. But yes, we're so happy. Okay, they can hear us. And the first thing that we are going to share, you want to go down the list, or, well, we should just do one at a time.
Yeah, so we'll do one at a time based on your handy dandy list there.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
3 tools that are absolutely free that you can use to manage your finances right now, both for home, but also specifically we're talking about for your herbal business. And you want to keep your home and your business expenses completely separate. So already we're operating from the assumption you have separate bank accounts. So if you don't have that figured out yet, that's the first step. Separate bank accounts, separate debit cards, separate if you're using credit cards, everything is separate. Your home life is all on all on personal accounts. Your business life is on business accounts. So already that's separate so that the transactions can be tracked separately. So we're going to share our screen.
And also one other thing, treat your home finances like your business finances. You treat your house like a business. Mm-hmm. And that was probably the best advice. I don't remember when I got that advice a while ago. And I probably didn't take it at first, but we absolutely treat our personal finances like business finances. And that's why, and we also had to find a way for them to work together, because otherwise it gets really overwhelming to have so many transactions, so many things to manage. Mm-hmm. If everything is in its own silo, right? Like you need the silo for the accounts, mm-hmm. but you need a way of managing it that makes sense for your mind. Yeah. And so,
and with 2 minds, we had to figure out how these 2 minds are going to work together without one person not checking out and then both of us checking out at the same time.
Because it's not just, because it's not just the personal life, right? It's not just like we're business partners and so our minds need to link up for business. We're also business partners. We're also married. We're also co-parenting, right? So there's a lot of systems that we need to come together and make sense for both of us, which in our example is our entire life has to make sense for both of us. Mm-hmm. So without further ado.
So if you're on Instagram, hop on over to our YouTube channel. I Will a Remedy on YouTube. We're about to share our screen so that you can see some of the easy systems that we use that are 100% free to help you manage business and life for business.
Boom, boom, boom. So the first thing we're going to talk about is our calendar.
Yeah.
Right?
So this was something that we implemented, I don't know, it's been several years now, because so we have tried services like Mint. We also do use Monarch for home business and like home transactions, but none of them helped us know, well, when is the money coming out? And so we just decided to, since we already have so many calendars already that kind of help us, manage time and appointments, we decided to implement a bills due calendar. So this is specifically what expenses are coming out, what date, and how much,
and what account,
which account is it coming out of. And then we have it color coded too. So if you're on our YouTube page, you can see that we have our screen up, and someone on YouTube, let us know that you can see our bills due calendar. Let us know in the chat with like a heart emoji or something. Let us know that you can see it, because it's color coded so that we know which transactions are home related and which transactions are business related. And so the yellow in this particular screen, the yellow means thank you, Phyllis. The yellow is this is coming out of one of the business accounts. And then the brown color is this is what's coming out of a home account. And head on over to our YouTube channel. I will remedy at YouTube. It'll show live. The link broke. We had to start it over. So just go to our channel and it'll have the alert that we are live. I will remedy on YouTube. And so when we look at this calendar, it's Google Calendar, whichever calendar system you like, as long as you have the color coding, because I find that to be really helpful.
But so let's stop for a second, because this was an area that we had to figure out that made sense for Salima.
Yeah.
Right. Salima needed something that she could look at on a daily or weekly basis that made sense for her, which was the color coding to easily see, okay, this is house or this is business.
Right.
Which one? And then when you dive into the note, you learn more if this is, what specific count is coming out of and stuff like that. But this was one of the areas that Salima was like, I need something visual. I can't just have a whole bunch of spreadsheets.
Oh my gosh, the spreadsheets is just like it's just like in a completely different language. It completely overwhelms me. But also, like, it still doesn't tell you, even if it's a date, it's still, I need the week. Like, show me this week, what's happening this week, from which account. Okay. And then something that you'll also see on our calendar is Mondays from 10 to 12. That is our fun finances meeting. So that is a sacred time. Like, we don't change that time. Doesn't matter if we're on vacation. It doesn't matter if we are not working that week or that Monday. Like, say Niles is home from school. So we typically are not working when he's home from school.
We're home from school.
Right. So if he's home from school, we're home from school. And so that's a time that it doesn't matter where we are. That's Mondays from 10 to 12. Maybe it'll shift and do 11 to whatever, but it's a time blocked off where no appointments can come in. And that is when we sit down and we do our fun finances meeting. And we call it fun finances meeting because it should be a fun finances meeting. And that the calendar really links into this fun finances meeting, because every week, and I'm manual. I write. I got paper everywhere. So I will write, here are all the accounts, the balance, and then what's coming out. Was it business? Is it home? Is it business? Is it home? Is it business? Is it home? Do the total. Boom. And that is really helpful. We'll just go from week to week. I can't zoom out. I don't want to zoom out. Just week to week, show me what's in and what's coming out. And that really helps us make decisions. That really helps us make decisions based on how much money is in the account and what needs to come out. So we definitely recommend, just depending on how your brain works, having a calendar or an alert system, something that shows you on this date, this is how much is coming out. This is the account it's coming out of. And then also this really helps too, because when you get, say you have services, so we have a headquarters. And so obviously there's utilities for the headquarters. And so Georgia Power, we realized this through the years of doing it. They're like, okay, Georgia Power, when we set up the calendar, it's like, okay, it comes out on the 15th, whatever the date is. We get alerts and then they change the dates. I don't know. And it's not always based on the holidays. And so sometimes it's like, well, we have it in the calendar as the 15th, but you look at your bank statements.
You came out on the 13th.
Or you came out on the 10th. And it's like, what is going on? So really keep track of your services and utilities, whatever they are, even though you have it on the calendar as a date, because that's when you set it up. And on this date is when it came out. Keep track of those date changes. And we've seen that with multiple services and usually it's early.
And that's auto debit, right? So
When
if you
you
don't
do
auto
auto
debit
debit,
things, if you go and you manually pay, then the date is that, what we do for those types of things, if we're manually paying that bill, we put it in for, let's say it's due on the 15th. We put it in on the 15th, but we set a reminder for like 2 days before, which is kind of alert like, hey, this bill is due, so that you don't run over, so you don't forget it's due. So you're going to get an alert a couple of days before, and you're also going to get an alert the day of. So that's also why we really like the calendar schedule. This calendar also works for us because we've got tons of like we live by our calendar.
That's how all of our calendars would be like.
We have a lot of calendars. Everyone's got a calendar, and it's, we look at it every day. And so if it's about finding something that you look at every day. And so the calendar has worked really well. And I think we've been doing it for several years at this point. And also what's really good about this is you get to update your life, right? Like, so say something wasn't on the calendar, and you checked your bank account and something came out that you totally forgot about. Yeah. That's an opportunity for you to go and add it to your calendar so that you remember next month or next year, however frequently it's charged. And that's a really great way of updating your finances in terms of knowing what subscriptions you have, what subscriptions you've canceled, and keeping track of that. A lot of times, we have so many subscriptions and we forget we have them, and then it can they just keep charging you, and you might not be using the service anymore, or you forgot you did it. So this is a really easy way, a free way to manage all things financial.
And then in that Monday meeting too, having that time on the calendar when you are devoted to figuring out your money, managing your money and making decisions around it. That's also when we decide like, okay, go pay the stuff that's not auto pay it today, pay it today, pay it today. So that is done. I'm also, the way my mind works, Monday, like that's the time for money. And then I don't want to think about it. And then like kind of drives me nuts in the middle of the week where Tammy's like, we got to talk about blah, 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 blah. Unless it's in the calendar. Like if like we need to come back and do a part 2 on Wednesday, and it's like, okay, my mind is wrapped around, we're coming back on Wednesday to do a part 2. But in between, I'm like, I don't think about it.
We talked about it. We're done.
We talked about it. We made the decisions. There are other things that I now need to think about and prioritize.
So that's a really great segue into the next tool that we use. But before that one, was a really great one. But before we move on to the next tool that we use, does anyone have any questions about the way this calendar is set up, or any other questions at this point? If you have questions on YouTube, pop them in the chat. IG, if you have questions or you want to see our screen share, please hop over to our YouTube channel at I Will a Remedy, and you can see our screen share. You can get the link to the fee table that we created for everybody so that you have something that you can walk away with to start managing your finances as well. And there's no questions, and so we will go on to the. Was there something else?
There was one other thing, because you were talking about, updating your life based on the things that are coming out. I will say for that like first year of doing the bills due calendar and the meetings too, and having these like surprise expenses, it's kind of like updating your wardrobe, where it's like, if you haven't worn, what's the stuff in the back of the closet that you have not worn in 2 years, and suddenly it's like, oh, here this thing is. It's like, it really was a great tool to really recognize and become aware of how much is going out that we were not aware of. So I definitely recommend the bills due calendar. And I think that was the last point. It took a year.
It took a year
like
to get everything in there.
To get everything in there. Shanice, hey Shanice. Shanice said, would QuickBooks be a good alternative to Salesforce?
No, they're two different things. Xero, Xero, would be a good alternative to QuickBooks. So you want to think about your QuickBooks, your Xero. These are your financial
Like
bookkeeping. Those I am not an accountant, and those tools, although I have to use them because I need to give something to my accountant, have always overwhelmed me, and it's always been very hard for me to wrap my head around two questions I like to know. How much does my life and my business cost me per month? And how much does my life and my business cost me per year? And those are two numbers I like to know. And I never could answer that question fully in those tools easily. Yeah. Let me rephrase. You can't answer them fully. That's a bookkeeping. That's the whole point of them. The way my mind worked, I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was very difficult for me. So I created ways that could answer those questions. With that said, you do need a good bookkeeping tool because at the end of the year, this makes your life infinitely easier when you have to write like your profit loss statement and give it to your accountant if you are applying for grants or something, and they ask for specific reports. So keeping those in line with your income and your expenses is super important. To me, that's kind of like overarching, but for my day-to-day, like the questions I have to answer, I don't use our bookkeeping software for that. With that said, we absolutely have bookkeeping software because at the end of the year, we've gotten much better with our accountant. But at the end of the year with our accountant, it was always like a mad scramble of like pulling stuff together. And when you keep your books in check every year, and that's something that we used to have a bookkeeper, but whatever. But what happens is every week you tag, categorize. There's a word for it. I can't remember. Reconcile. You reconcile. Thank you. I reconcile every week. Some people reconcile every month, but we reconcile. So at the end of the year, all I have to do is print off a report and send it to my accountant for the business. And so at the top of this call, we also said we run our personal life like we run our business. So we have something similar to Xero, which is Xero, or QuickBooks for a personal life, which is called Monarch, Monarch. Like the butterfly. Which, if you all are familiar, it's like, what was the other tool we used to use?
There is another free one. Mint.
So it's similar to that, but we pay for Monarch, but it's similar to bookkeeping for your personal life. And we go in and we reconcile that every week too. That's what happens on Mondays for us. We go in and we reconcile that also, and those are connected to your bank accounts. And so how that makes your life easier at the end of the year is I also go into Monarch and I print off a report and I give our accountant, here's our business and here's our personal, and
do your magic.
Right, do your magic. And then we're good to go. Where before it was like trying to pull the receipts together, creating a spreadsheet for this, creating a spreadsheet for that. It became extremely cumbersome. It was super stressful. And our accountant was always like, you're going to get it next year. You're going to pull it together. And I'm like, I am trying so hard to figure out how to pull this together, how for us to work together. But we got it. So those are the two tools. I'll pop them in the chat. For business, for bookkeeping, we're not really going to go deep into bookkeeping because we want to keep with the theme of this is we want to give you free tools that you can use. These are not free. I want to make sure that's clear. These two tools are not free. With that said, they're not super expensive either. So for business, we use Xero, Xero. And for personal, we use Monarch.
And the interface on Monarch is better. So it's like you can put Mint too, but
it
just depends on how people.
Well, I don't use that anymore, so I don't like to. Monarch I really like that. Yeah. And one last thing I'll say about these two tools that I really like, especially Monarch. Xero, I don't really use that. I have business a different way, but Monarch, I really like Monarch because it is a really easy way for you to see how much money you are spending every month and on what. if you reconcile it every month, and it can do automation for you, right? We are not affiliated with Monarch in any way, shape, or form. I just want to make sure that everyone is clear on that. But when we did this and we reconciled, we realized that we were spending something like $2,000 a month on food, eating out
on top of our
grocery bill. And so that was a huge eye opener for us. And we went to work immediately on slashing expenses, of looking where we're spending money. That's not necessary. That's not necessary, because it is so easy to get caught up in life. It's so easy to be like, oh, I'm too busy to cook. I have to do this. And then when you look at the end of the month and you're like, in 1 month, I spent how much on eating out? It was a huge eye opener for us. It was.
The numbers don't lie.
They don't lie. But if you don't reconcile and you don't look at them, then it's easy for you to believe a lie in your head.
It's like, oh, we don't eat out that much. Yeah, everything got cut.
Everything.
Uber Eats.
Everything got cut. Everything.
Instacart.
Everything. I was like, absolutely. Well, because when you see it, right? Who said it? Phyllis said it. I'm scared to see how much money I spend on food. Phyllis, I was scared to see how much money I spent on food too, because there's also a part of me that didn't want it to stop, right? But it had to, because I'm like, that's just ridiculous. And so once we both swallowed our pride, right? And was like, okay, let's look at these numbers and let's like work through the emotions. Let's work through our feelings. And then let's get to work on really taking a hold and getting our minds around this cash flow thing. And so that's why it's become so important to me to understand, how much does my life cost me per month, and how much does my life cost me per year? Because when that number gets too high, things need to get cut. Like there's something that I might not need.
Especially since there already is like naturally inflation. So it's like, how can we mitigate some of that?
Yeah.
Too. And when the economic fluctuations and like, who knows what's going to happen next. And it's like, this is definitely an area that you want to have a hold on.
What's up, Roots God? He's thank you so much for this. So I just had to do a spreadsheet for taxes for my accountant. I'm sure this would have saved me a lot of labor. I will tell you, it absolutely will. I do not remember how much we pay for Monarch. Maybe $100 a year.
I think it's 100. I think it's 100 a year.
I don't quite remember. It is 100% worth that $100 a year. Again, I have absolutely no affiliation with Monarch whatsoever. It's just a tool that I use that has saved me so much time and energy. And I think they do a really, really good job with it, and they're constantly updating it. So that's the calendar, and that's just a little side note about bookkeeping software. I think
one of the key things about the bookkeeping software, and if you're on our Instagram, hey, pop into our YouTube, because we're sharing our screen so that you can see the free financial systems and tools that we're using. I will a remedy on YouTube. The key thing about the bookkeeping, because we made, it wasn't a mistake, but we hired someone who didn't tag or like categorize our business expenses well in the beginning. And so
they didn't build the chart of accounts properly.
Right. I think that's the most important, well, obviously keeping track of it, but having someone who can build the chart of accounts is really important. And that's why it's a lot easier now for you to reconcile them, to manage the bookkeeping, because the chart of accounts is correct.
Right.
Before, when we were using QuickBooks and we had incorrect chart of accounts, it was very confusing. So I would say, I would just hire someone who is when you're at that point, hire someone who's experienced in that part of it.
Right. We are not. And
we weren't, and we didn't know what we didn't know to correct it. So we just had to just start over. Yeah. Hey, Kate.
And it was fine.
Yeah, and it was fine.
And right, Roots. So automation in general. So one last piece about bookkeeping. So you can automatically connect, and we do, your bank accounts. if you don't feel comfortable connecting your bank accounts, then you will have to input each transaction. But we do connect our bank accounts, so it automatically pulls in. And here's the one thing that makes it really easy from a business and personal perspective. Once you've been in there a while, it will automatically remember like, oh, Georgia Power, that's a utility. And you literally just have to push a button that is essentially yes,
right?
yes, right? And so once it's all set up, like the process of reconciling your accounts on a weekly basis is super fast. And that can be true for your business and for your personal. So that at the end of the year, it really is just a printing out maybe your P&L, your profit loss, or your income statement probably for your accountant. You give it to them and they might have some questions. The other thing that's really helpful with these tools, if you work with an accountant, is you can just send them a link so that they can just log in. You don't even have to print something off for them. And then they can just dive in and they can see everything. And then they can see your chart of accounts and stuff like that. So those are just ways of making it a little bit easier. It's also ways of saving money on a bookkeeper if you need to cut that out of your expenses and understand the way your money is working. So yeah, so that is a little bit about bookkeeping and
that's the calendar
and our calendar. I can't say enough about this calendar. The calendar is perfect. So now let's go to the other tool. So this is the tool. So we have the calendar, and then Salima talked about she can't have conversations in the middle of the week about money. And that is so true. If I have one question,
you just see the overwhelm, just like
her whole deer in headlights, just
like what? Like my mind's not there anymore. We did it on Monday.
She's like, why are we talking about this? I was like, because our life continues and things come up. So what we then had to implement was a way of communicating this to each other without overwhelm. And this is where Slack comes in. So we use Slack. And so let me just type that in the chat. I lost my chat. So that you all, I don't know if you all are familiar with it. Again, no free. We have absolutely no association with Slack. We just use the tool. We think it's great. So Slack is a communication app, and you can build all these different channels so that you can
have different types of conversations and keep track of them.
Yeah, and like silos, right? They're separate, and you can do permissions, so some people can see it, some people can't. We know people that use Slack only for their personal life. We know people that use it only for their business life. We use it for both. And so hold on one second before we get into Slack. Someone had a question about the calendar and I didn't see it before we left. So the main thing is to schedule all of your bills on calendar and get a budget tracker like Monarch or Xero. Just making sure I'm a little late, class. No worries. Right. So the first thing, yes, get your bills on your calendar for you to see on a weekly basis what's coming out, how much is coming out, from what account is it coming out of. We sidetracked a little bit to Monarch and Xero for your bookkeeping. And then we have other tools that we use to manage our money too, and we're going to go over that. But that's the thing with the calendar. The calendar is it's more of visual learners, color-coded. People that need things color-coded, and so that you can see it in a really easy way to understand. This week is essentially, this is how much money I need this week. Do I have it? Yes or no? Right. That's what the calendar is for us. And so again, Salima can't really handle a conversation about money if it's outside of Monday between the hours of 10 and 12 Eastern time. So we needed to come up with a way that we could communicate
decisions that we need to make about money at the next meeting.
Or if it's like urgent, like, yo, we need to talk about this now, but in the next meeting. So we use Slack, and we created a Slack channel called Budget Notes. And so we throw everything in the budget notes. So, for example, if it is Tuesday and I ran out of
Your
pea protein,
right.
then I don't just
You don't just go buy
we
it.
don't just go
Right.
buy it. So I open Slack, I throw it in the channel, I need pea protein. So then when we sit down on Monday and we're going over all of our finances, and these are the bills that are going to come out, and then what else do we need? Then that's where the Slack channel comes in, and we scroll through it, and I'm like, well, I need pea protein, Niles needs new sneakers,
I need a book,
Salima needs a book. Right. And so that's what comes in the Slack channel. And we go through, and if we have, if I put gas on one of our Amexes, then I'm like, well, I need to pay that Amex because I put gas on it. So the thing with the Slack channel is what helped us introduce the pause. And so what the pause is, this kind of goes back to when we signed on with Monarch and realized that we spent $2,000 in 1 month on eating out. It became super clear that we needed to put some buffers in place for our impulse control, because clearly we had none. So we introduced the pause. So what the pause is that we don't just, unless it is urgent, and there's very few things that are urgent, we don't just go and buy it. We talk about it. That's why we have a weekly meeting that we sit down and we have a conversation. Do you need it now? Do we need this now? Do you really want it? And so what we have also learned with instituting this pause is, in making ourselves wait until Monday, you see how much or not that you actually need or want. Because a lot of times once Monday comes, it's like, I'm good. Yeah. I don't really need that now, or I found a different thing, or I don't want to do that. And if it's still there, then it's like, well, yeah, I really do want that, or I really do need that. And so we use it. And so that's been really helpful in learning impulse control, especially for me. I have I like it in this urgency. Like I need to have it now. And it's like, you don't.
You also learn like how creative you get when you don't buy something immediately. Like, did you actually need it? How long can you wait before you get it? And then I think, like, as a family of 3, well, and Prosper too, because we see a note, get Prosper's dog food.
Right.
Like, it also spreads out who gets what when.
Right.
So, like, somebody gets something this week. So you also don't feel like you're always restricted, but you don't just go crazy buying everything at once that you don't need right now.
Right.
And like everything, if you can see our screen, for those who are on Instagram, head to YouTube. We're sharing our screen and the tools that we're using, the free tools that you can use to manage your finances, both for home and business. And we have our Slack channel up. And if you can see on the screen, you see the note that I just put, serrapeptase, nattokinase, and bromelain. We use serrapeptase. I want to try nattokinase. I want to try bromelain. These are different supplements. We had the question, like, knowing in the bills due calendar, $120 is about to come out, $29 is about to come out for office.
Well, not until May.
We still need that.
But that's
great, because we are looking ahead. Like in May, this is going to come out. Do we still need to pay for Microsoft Office subscription when we use Google?
And we pay for Google?
We pay for Google too, like as a business. So it helps you make different decisions. And then we have a lead time. So that was my response. Like, we probably don't need it. And we have from February to May to migrate anything over into Google that we might need to. But I don't even think we need it anymore. But like, had we not had the calendar, had we not had the tool that we're going to show next, which is the fee table, this would have just come out of the account and we're like, now I'm in it for another year. Like, it would have come out without us knowing if we weren't tracking it.
Right. And there was
a donation.
Yeah, so we put everything in here, even things that we have to look ahead. We needed some place to drop all of that and have a conversation. And then, you could do other things. You can flag it. You can have it remind you. The one caveat that you would have to remember with Slack, if you don't pay for it, is these threads will go away after 90 days.
I thought it was 30.
Okay, I thought it was 90.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, they're going to go away.
They're going to go away.
If you don't pay for it. So that's just something to stay mindful, and you can just copy it again and paste it, and that starts over the clock. But this is not, again, it's not financial advice. We are not associated with Slack. You got to say these things multiple times for new people that come on. And I am not saying that you shouldn't pay for Slack. I'm just letting you know.
That we don't.
That
but yeah, so the Slack channel, that's really helpful.
From a communication.
And then on the Monday meetings, that's when we go through the Slack channel when we're saying, here's everything that we need to buy. Here's everything that's going to come out. What are we going to purchase? What's going to wait? And then, the other reason why I like the Slack channel too, because it's the things that you need to purchase, but it's also like things that you want. It's your desires too. And I will say that every time we've written down something that we've wanted and that desire has remained kind of alive, we get it. So it's kind of like that spiritual kind of aspect to it too, of like, write down your desires. We get it. Do I get it immediately? Not necessarily, but then when you get it, it's the right time and it feels really good to have acquired it. So we put big and small, all things that we want. And then we give ourselves that pause to allow ourselves like, do I still want this? Can I do without it? Can I find something else that replaces it? Can I find it cheaper? You get to make all kind of different decisions. Get to be more discerning about your financial choices. And then I will say things that have been important to us that we wanted, we put in our Slack channel and we eventually get it. We
do. And I just want, you said something about, it left me. I hate when that happens. In any event, you get more creative with instituting the pause. You really do get more creative. And I have learned to appreciate this and enjoy it. And I thought of when I needed the holders for the weights. I needed these grips for my weights because I was getting these calluses. And I went and I looked and I was like, I was just like, gosh, I got to pay for these. I was like, I don't know. And then I went home and I found something that worked perfectly for free and I didn't have to pay for it. And I felt, I gotta tell you, I felt so happy. I felt so much better about it. I was so happy about it.
Like using the stuff you already have.
Yeah, because it's not that serious. I just need something to protect my calluses.
Right.
It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't. It just needs to work. So instituting that pause has been super instrumental on being able to wrap your head around where money is going, but it's been even better. It's been really about understanding your own knee-jerk reactions to purchases and kind of diving deep into, the emotional aspect of why do I feel like I need this right now? What hole am I trying to fill? What's the external, right? Because money is a spiritual,
too. Yeah.
What'd you say?
Yeah, good.
It is spiritual. And so I do believe you have to bring your emotions into your finances and understand where certain desires, where certain needs, where certain wants are coming from and ensure that they're coming from where you want them to come from and that they are moving you in the direction that you say you want to move into. And so that brings us to any questions about the Slack channel, any questions about our bills calendar, any other just questions that you have.
And it's not this about the Slack channel too, because we're talking about it like it's communication between the two of us, but this is also for you, even if you are not partnered, whether in business or at home, this is still where you can have that running conversation. You can keep track of the things you want, what needs to come out, so that you have, it's like a list, it's a running list of like what financial decisions that you need to make so that when you have you're still going to have your fund finances meeting, when you have your fund finances meeting, that's all in one place and you can still make those decisions. So it's not I have to have somebody to do this with. Like, no, we each talk to ourselves on our own Slack channels.
Right. Yeah, we have our own first, like remind for this or remind for that. Yeah. Good point, Salima.
All right. We have with one more tool.
So now,
free 99. Hi, Instagram. If you're on Instagram, we are talking about our fun finances and all the free financial tools that we use to help manage our business finances that also can be used for home finances as well. And we're sharing our screen on YouTube. So we've been showing folks on YouTube our actual tools that we use. So head on over to our YouTube channel. If you want to see the screen share, it is I Will a Remedy at YouTube. Let's go. So we're on our third and final free tool. And
so this is a version of our fee table. So we created a spreadsheet for you all, and I dropped the link in there for you to get that for yourselves. This version of the fee table for us is built in Salesforce because from a business, that's a database tool that we use. And so we manage ours in Salesforce. With that said, you can manage this in a spreadsheet as well, the spreadsheet that we built. And so just so you can, it's this. It's super easy. And so what happens here is I put in, it's very similar to the calendar, but the calendar is more for Salima. The spreadsheet is more for me. The calendar is great. We sit down, we have the meeting, I understand. I like to see.
She can handle the spreadsheet.
A spreadsheet. I like to see a list. And that helps me understand when things come out monthly, when things come out yearly. It helps me understand what category, like what am I associating this with? What are you doing?
I wanted them to see more of it on the screen.
Oh, that's why I shared it out with them so that they can get it for themselves.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So if you go to the link that we put in YouTube, you can get this exact
this fee
table. And I'll go through how we use it. So again, I am a spreadsheet person. And so what I do here is this will be the date, basically the date that it's going to come out. So if it's going to come out on the 20th, great. In active, true or false means, do we still have this? Like, are we actively using it? Yes. If we're not actively using it, then we would change it to false. And because of my IT background, we don't delete. I don't really believe in deleting things. I believe in archiving things so that I can always go back and see what we used to do. So for example, this is just a test one. But let's say we're going to make this false and we're going to not use test company anymore. Well, there might be a time next year, the end of this year, that I need to remember what did we used to pay test company, or do I want to bring it back? I might have a question. And so I could just filter this by the things that are false, and I can see all of those vendors that we used to purchase from that we don't. Then you just put the vendor name, whoever that may be. In this example, it's test company. It tells you the payment account that it's coming out of. So, it could be PayPal, it could be your business bank account, it could be whatever it is that you use for payment accounts. And this helps me understand what these costs are associated with. So you can create your own categories. I just gave an example of operations with a subcategory of accounting. So this comes out of operations, and this will be very similar to what happens in your bookkeeping. You don't need to do this. You can do this in your bookkeeping and just look at that. But if you don't have a bookkeeping and you need a way to keep track, this is where this would come in. What are you doing?
I don't know why it glitters.
Yay. It's all, sorry, everyone. It's glittered on our IG Live, which is, we don't know why it's happening. It's very excited. And so then here for fee term, you would put in if it's monthly or yearly. right? And so if the fee you put in, if you choose monthly, you put in how much you're going to pay monthly. And what is happening?
I don't know how to get rid of the glitter.
Yeah, I guess you can. You just
Shalita said it's nice.
see, Shalita likes the glitter. It's happy. Anyway, once you choose monthly and you put in a fee, it's automatically going to calculate for you. So it's going to calculate your monthly fee, and it's going to calculate here how much you pay a year. And then you can put any notes. And so that's going to happen all the way across. And so what's going to happen is when you scroll down, you're easily going to be able to see how much you pay a month and how much you pay a year. And for the way my mind works, this is super, super helpful because I can easily look and say, okay, I need $10 a month to manage whatever this is for you. We keep them separate. So if it's business or if it's personal, don't combine these. These aren't all in one. You do one for business, you do one for personal. And I'd say, okay, I need $120 a year to run my business, or I need $120 a year to run my household. This is a really easy way to quickly look and see, where the calendar can't answer this question for me like this, right? The calendar is very much color coded. This is where we are essentially in today, and it's not looking ahead. I needed something that told me, this is how much you need each month for this business. This is how much you need each month for this household. And I'm generally the one that kind of goes in and cuts. That's an easy way for me to go and look and say, okay, I need to make this go away. If I zero this out, what does it change? What does it change my yearly, monthly bill to? If I add something, what does that change it to? Where you can't do that with a calendar, and you can't really do that within your what's it called?
You can't do that with
your bookkeeping. Your bookkeeping. Yeah. You can kind of do it with Monarch, but it doesn't work for me. Anyway, you can't really do that with your bookkeeping. This is where I play with numbers, right? And I'm like, here's, let's say we're saying you need $5,000 a month for your business, and Salima wants to add a new service. Then I can come and I can look, and I'm like, well, if we add that service, it puts it, we are over the $5,000. So we either have to make more money or we have to cut something. And that's usually where I go and I look, and I was like, well, are you still using this? Mm-hmm. Are you still using that? And so this is how it's different than the calendar, because the calendar, it's not very easy for you to see it from a budgeting perspective. Mm-hmm. Of when you say, well, I want to add a new service, or and this is more for like those ongoing bills. It's not really like, well, I want a book. It's like, well, okay, but this is more, here are our monthly expenses. And if you want to add a new monthly expense, we either have to see if it's coming within our budget, then okay, great. If it's not coming in our budget, then we have to make some concessions, and we have to have more of a conversation around that.
Yeah. What I really like I don't use this tool because it's a spreadsheet, and that makes my mind go nuts. But I'm so glad that Tammy does, because you said something earlier this week that I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Even though, so we have a space that we lease, our rent went up because rent goes up. But for the year, our expenses went down because she does that management of like, what services do we need? What services do we not need? And that's super important, because as these services start to stack up, and it's usually the technology stuff, like we use Kajabi for our courses and our email list, and Kajabi has grown where it's like, well, now we can start having a conversation of like, well, maybe we can get rid of Calendly, because now Kajabi has implemented a calendar app. Maybe we can get rid of Zoom because Kajabi has implemented their own video conferencing service. So as these services start racking up, and everyone wants a piece of the pie, they start adding more to their platforms, you might have redundancy that you're paying for and you don't realize it. So like having that table and knowing what you're paying for, knowing when it's coming out, knowing how much it's costing you a year, and being able to make those decisions of like, I don't think I need that anymore because now it's over here. Like we got ClickUp, which is a project management tool, so we were able to get rid of Lucid Charts, which was something that helped us create like mind maps. It's helpful if you're like a visual learner. But if we weren't tracking the numbers and we weren't tracking what the services were doing, those would have just kept coming out. And then you were saying too, sometimes people, usually it goes up, but sometimes they actually scale back a plan.
That's happened with Zapier. So we also use Zapier, and we were on, I don't know, let's just say they're middle tier. I don't remember what they're called. But in any event, the reason we were paying for that was we needed like one specific issue,
Right.
one specific thing. We need to be able to use premium Zaps. And then their lower plan, they added those premium Zaps. And so I went and I dropped us down.
Drop down the plan.
And I saved us money. I've done the same thing with ClickUp. They were charging something for the plan we're on. I was like, I don't think we need that anymore because we changed. Our business needs changed.
That too.
And I was like, I don't think we need it anymore. I looked and saw how much we were paying. I dropped it down. And so then there were savings. And then, because I look at, and also the reason I like the table is because you can play with the numbers. So you can look and see, well, if I change this number to a 0, what happens? If I change this to a 20, and I add that, like, what happens? I like doing that changing to see where are we saving. And sometimes, and you also have to balance that because sometimes you were saying Kajabi has all those things. Sometimes you also have to ask yourself, how much am I paying for this on a yearly basis or a monthly basis? And is it worth the amount of work it's going to take for me to switch over to something else? So there are those questions that you have to ask yourself, like, does it make sense? Like we use it, Zoom is a really good example. We use Zoom every week. We use Zoom for tons of different things. Yes, you can do it in Kajabi, but is it worth all that it would take to move us from Zoom over to Kajabi fully? And then will Kajabi be able to do everything that we need it to do? Like you also have to factor in that there's going to be hiccups. Do I want to deal with that? Right. So there's also kind of like that that balance of, do we really want to move over or not?
Right, like changing out of Microsoft, that's a very easy choice to make. That's not going to take a lot of effort.
It's just canceling.
Stop using it, right?
You just hit cancel. But there are other things when you're trying to put it all under one tool, like one program, one service, that there are things that you have to kind of think about. Does this make sense in the long run? And it's not always a money. It's not always a money answer because it could take you, 20 hours to switch you over, and you're like that wasn't worth it.
Right.
So that's something to think of. So that's why I really like the spreadsheet. And it's not something that you update every week. The spreadsheet is really, the way I use the spreadsheet is that's every year. I redo it every year, which on here is super easy. You would just duplicate the tab and then you have the next year and just change the dates. But at the end of every year is when I go through all of our services with a fine-tooth comb and I ask, do we still use this? Do we still use this? Are we using this? Have we changed? Have our business needs changed? Are we involved in something now that will give us a discount? Like we are involved in something now that gave us a huge discount on using Adobe, right? So asking those questions, and it's that check-in, and then you look and you say, and that's also why I don't delete, because now I can look at the past year, and that's how I can know, am I saving money year over year? Are we going up? Are we going down? And that's how we can really try and keep things level. And it also, and I would also say that energetically, when you look at your monthly, how much your life costs on a month, you'll know the number that you're comfortable with at this moment, right? And you'll know when you're not comfortable with a number. So if your monthly bill is like $5,000 a month and you're like, okay, I'm good with that, but then it starts creeping up to $6,000,
Right.
you might be like, I'm doing it, but it just doesn't feel right. And so that's a really good indicator that it's time to go in and look at what you're paying for and see where you can cut and ask, do I need this? Do I need this? Do I want this? Am I using it? Am I involved in something else? Again, always look at the things that you're involved with, in which people offer discounts all the time. Or the library, do you have your library card and you're buying books? Stop buying the books. It's a free library card. Go to the library, right? Like, so it's also a way of being creative, of looking at your numbers and seeing not where you can cut from a perspective of you don't get to have it anymore, but where can I be more creative with the way I use my money so more stays in my pocket, but I still get the service or the whatever that I want and need.
Yeah. So just to recap, the free tools that we've been talking about that help you manage your business finances. The first one is a bills calendar. So set up a Google Calendar, color code it, but every single time you have a bill coming out, you want that on your bills calendar. And you want to know, what is the bill? What date is it coming out? What account is it coming out of? Is it home related or is it business related? Because those finances are being tracked separately, but you can still have one bills calendar and color coded. It'll probably take a good year, like it took us a year, for there to no longer be surprise things like, what was that came out of the account? But do as much as you can. Keep track of the alerts. Like if you have utility alerts that come to your phone and the dates that they say this is going to be debited from your account or this is due on this date, update your bills calendar. Like, this is how much the water bill is this month. This is how much. This is when it's coming out, because those utility dates, particularly, they're slippery fish.
They are slippery fish.
They come out at different dates, even though you think it's going to be like monthly on the 15th. That may not necessarily be so. The other tool as a part of our calendar is have a weekly meeting with yourself, with your partner, with your people, with yourself. It doesn't matter. Have a weekly time where you go through your finances, where you go through your bills calendar, what's coming out, you know how much is in there, you know what's coming in, and do you have enough? And if there's extra, where are you putting it? We didn't even talk about that, but are you putting it into savings? Are you putting it into paying down debt? Are you putting it into buying something that you need for you or your household? And then our Slack channel. So we have a communication tool that helps us keep track of the things that we want to buy so that we don't immediately go out and buy something. It helps us to institute what Tammy calls is the pause, not the menopause.
That's happening too, but the pause.
But the pause. So it helps to curb your impulse control so that you don't think of something on the drive, and then as soon as you get home, you're like, yes, I'm going to buy it. Think about it. Put it on the Slack channel, on your fund finances meeting, that meeting that you have every week. You look at the Slack channel of the things you thought about buying, and then you actually make you discern what what you need to purchase, what's within your budget to purchase this week. And if you can't purchase it this week, you keep it on the Slack channel for the next week or the week after that. Spiritual principle, writing things down that you do want, you do eventually get them. We don't always need them immediately. And then the third tool was our fee table. Is it still sharing the screen? Our fee table. Oh, it doesn't have to.
Oh.
That is similar to the bills due calendar, but a different view where you are keeping track. It's a spreadsheet. We are sharing the spreadsheet with you. So if you want to pop to our YouTube channel and grab the link to the spreadsheet, you can do that. We're sharing the spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet is showing all of basically like the subscriptions, all of the expenses and the subscriptions that
your monthly fees,
your monthly, yearly fees, ongoing things where you can see the year view of how much this is costing you per year. You can see, excuse me, the month view of how much this is costing you per month. And then it helps you make different decisions about these services that might be overlapping in what they offer you. Are you really using it? Do you still need it? And just help, because there are things that are like more fixed. Like we know and can anticipate that rent is going to go up every year. But that doesn't mean everything else has to go up every year. And we can decide like, oh, we don't really use that tool anymore. So let's either downgrade the plan or let's completely get rid of it. So that really helps. It really helps so that the finances don't just continue to like balloon, and it helps like, certain things are going to go up, but there's a lot of levers that we can pull so that everything doesn't go up at the same time.
Yeah.
So those are all free. The Bill's calendar, that's your calendar, is free $99. Slack channel, free $99. And the spreadsheet that we put together for you all, you can use your own kind of similar system, free $99. When entrepreneurs say spend as little money as possible in the beginning, we mean it.
Not just at the beginning. Well, spend as little as possible. Period. Like,
period. Yeah.
I don't know if and we've been told this many times, but a lot of times life teaches. Stay on free things as long as you can stay on free things. I understand from an entrepreneur perspective when you might be looking out at other people and being like, well, they can do this and they can do that. Here's the thing. No one knows, but you don't even know that. No one knows the behind the scenes. Yeah. No one knows the behind the scenes. And I think I've said this before, but we had restaurant owners.
Oh yeah, when we won the Power Business Plan competition, hi for the person on the YouTube.
Hey, yeah. When we won the business plan competition in Brooklyn many years ago, one part of that we got to sit down with business owners and have conversations, and they would impart their wisdom to us. And one of them said, everyone cares about revenue. Everyone cares about revenue. He's like, I don't care about revenue. I care about profit. And the only way you have a healthy profit is you manage your expenses and you keep your expenses as low as humanly possible. And so we've been in business for 14? 2010. We've been in business for a while now. And you're going to learn the ebbs and flows of business. And that rings so true now because we've gone through a season of seeing other people and being like, well, they can do this and they can do that. And we've been in business
at the same time,
right?
They grew up
long enough that we should be able to do this too. And for anyone that needs to hear it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what someone else is doing. It doesn't matter what it looks like someone is doing. No one knows the behind the scenes. No one knows what someone is choosing to share and not choosing to share. The best advice that I think anyone can give when it comes to money in business is keep your expenses as low as possible. Don't try to spend because you think it makes you look blah, 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 or I should be able to do this at this point.
I earned it.
Keep those expenses as low as you can, and always don't check out. Always, always, always look at those numbers. Even if you have a bookkeeper, even if you have an accountant, you should always know your own numbers. At any time, I can tell you how much it costs to run I always say our two households. I know exactly how much it costs to run my household, and I know exactly how much it costs to run my business every month. And if that changes even by $5, I know that too. And it's so important. And I think people talk about it, and a lot of times, again, life teaches. When you live through it, you're like, oh, that's what they meant. I got it. Like, oh, I understand now.
Learn the lessons the harder way, which is fine.
It is fine. But I think I felt like that advice always came at the expense of you ever getting to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And I don't ever want it to come from us that you don't get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. I think you should enjoy the fruits of your labor, because otherwise it's going to feel like, why am I doing this? But I do think that there are really creative ways for us to enjoy and get everything we want without having a really bloated overhead. And for those that don't know, overhead are your expenses, right? This is everything that's overhead. And you have to like work up to it with your income.
Right. So you're hustling.
Right. And so I think that's the best advice that I've ever received. I would say that actually the second best advice was that other woman who said, you don't want an investor.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, unless
she broke it down. She said, unless you want a boss, you don't want investors. And part of why we wanted to have our own company was so that we could determine freedom of time, freedom of location, like that level of freedom. And when she was just really honest, like, because it becomes a different kind of game where it's like their expectation is that you are going to 10x this and it's going to be in this time frame, and if you don't want to do that, don't take investment capital. And we were like, all right. Thank you for breaking it down.
Yeah, we were fortunate. We got a lot of good advice.
We did. We got very good
advice. We followed
advice.
some. We didn't follow others.
Yeah, learning lumps through some of the others. But I will say to that point too of like people, you know, that comparison, especially with social media, and you see other of your peers, and you think people are so much further along. And I remember having a recent conversation with someone who was like, wow, like they started their business later than us and they got all this capital. And then the behind the scenes conversation, their question, like, oh, sometimes we're like, why did we take that money? We're struggling. We don't have this. We don't have this. So it's like, keep that in mind when you are viewing people on social media. It's like you don't know what they're going through. It's very curated what you put out. We try to keep it real. You see me in my pajamas making medicine. Like
you can keep it as real as you can keep it. Like you can't put all your business out in the street. Yeah. So it's not that necessarily that you don't want to share, but sometimes you're going through your own stuff and you're like, look, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna make it through this.
Right.
But I think that's a really good
it's just a
reminder.
A good moment to be like, oh, like, right, the grass is greener where you water it. So that expression, the grass is greener.
So water your grass.
Water your grass, kind of like literally like mind your business and the growth of your business and what you want and your trajectory. And everyone else's path is completely different.
Right.
But there are some sound principles that we can apply across the board, and like paying attention to the money in the way that you can. And that's what we really had to learn of, like, we view money differently. We spend money differently. We have different money habits, but whomever you're sharing world and life with, like, you got to get on the same page about those things, but that doesn't mean that you have to do it in the exact same way. So we found the systems that both of our brains can look at.
Right.
And like have conversations around. It's like, okay, yeah. I'm once a week. Tammy likes the detail.
I do like that. I like to know.
As long as I know we got it.
Right.
I'm okay with waiting to spend in other areas. But as long as I know the money's in the bank for that week, great. I'm good.
So pick what works for you.
Pick what works.
And and even if it's not, you don't have someone that you're working with and you're flying solo right now, that's fine. When I would fly solo, like before we got together, it was the spreadsheet. So that spreadsheet has followed me, for 20 something years at this point.
Right. And when I was solo,
I don't know how you did it.
I did what I do now. It was, here's the month or the week. I would literally like have it already chunked out so that things were prepaid.
Oh, that's right.
Like, it's the worry around a bill.
I remember now.
I would make money orders of rent. And I'm like, here's the cash, money order of the rent, so that I didn't have to think about it again. Because I'm like, the money order's right there. All I have to do is mail it.
I remember, because when we got together, that's when I was so blown away. Salima paid her bills for the year, and I was like, how do you do that? I was like, you pay it for the year? And she was like, yeah, because I don't want to think about it. And I was like, oh. And then we got together and paid bills for the year. And I was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. Like, it's done.
And so sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's a week. Like, there's different seasons.
Different seasons. It is what it is.
But it is what it is.
But I do remember.
That's why I don't do the daily, because I can literally feel like the anxiety. It's just like, no, what's the time that I'm good? Good.
Right. So this is an example of how two completely different minds, and we think very differently, come together. What'd you say?
We think differently on almost everything.
Almost everything. We're almost like the polar opposite for almost every thought. But sorry.
What?
It just made me laugh because we're so opposite. Anyway, this is an example of what it looks like for two completely opposite people to come together and create a system that works for both of them and answers all the questions that need to be answered. And so we hope it was helpful. That was, of course, is always our intent. And take, as with everything and anything we do, take what works for you, leave the rest. Remix it. Use it how it works for you, and that it jives in your mind. And soar, flourish. That's what we want for ourselves. That's what we want for all you. If that's all we have. So if anyone has any questions, we didn't get deep into any. We did touch a little bit on bookkeeping, but we really wanted to give free ways for you to manage your money, to overcome any anxiety around money, and really give you the doorway of managing it in a manner that would work for you, so that the overwhelm doesn't come in and then you just shut down and you just don't look and you're like, I don't want to know. Because that's, believe it or not, a worse feeling than knowing and then being able to make decisions based on actual numbers instead of just kind of staying all up in your mind and being like,
right,
I don't want to know, and I'm just going to stick here. So if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat now. If no one has any questions, this, as our other lives, will go up once it's done doing its magic in the background. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning, so there might have been a different live that everyone saw, but this will be the one that goes up, and the chat always goes up as well. You can always email us at help@iwillaremedy.com if you have questions. And
come on into Herbal Medicine for the Soul, because we do business conversations every other month.
Yeah, we talk about business every other month, and amongst so many other things. It's really a whole, it's, people know us because of you as an herbalist, but it really is a whole person life course. Like we just did a nutrition course. We've done movement classes. What else? I mean, we've done so much. Just, you're going to learn the herbalism, but you're going to learn so much more. All right. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you for joining us another Sunday. As you all know, we've committed to doing these 3 Sundays a month. Yeah. This is the first one for February, and we will see you all next week with a new topic. And again, you can email if there's something you want to talk about or you want to ask us a question about. help@iwillaremedy.com, and we'll do a live about it. All right. Thank you, y'all. Have a good one.